It's time for bookkeeping, beer, and BS. You know how some people have those voices where you're just like, I could just listen to you talk and like just take a nap. That was that lady that read that commercial. I was just like, oh, I just like her voice. I could just like lay here and take a nap. Just read. You know, I'm not going to read the book myself. Just, ma'am, would you please read me a story? It could be one of my kids' stories. It could be a business book. Either way, I'm going to fall asleep. But just, read me something.
Right. No, what I was going to say, Dan, because I thought you made a really good point there. If you think about it, you always hear the analogy or the comment that football is a game of inches, right? But so is business. I mean, you don't even have to be talking about successes. You could talk about failures. Think about a time where if you would have asked one more question early on in the process, it would have saved you hours and hours and hours of time later on, right? And so we talk about not being focused, right? I mean, the offseason issues, Aaron Rodgers, the Packers, since we use them, we'll go with that. Aaron Rodgers probably didn't need to study any playbooks in the offseason because I bet that man has nothing else in the game of football he can probably learn. I genuinely think he is a football genius and no one's going to throw something at him he doesn't understand. But let's say they make it to a third straight NFC championship game in hopes that they aren't going to lose again, right? That one play, that one fourth down conversion that needs to happen, that's the difference between Super Bowl or not, could be understanding where your receiver is going to go on a broken play. And instead of going in jeopardy or going to the Kentucky Derby or bitching about the Packers in your long-term play, you spent one more afternoon with receivers and figured out, oh, I know this guy likes to do this. And that's the difference of your entire season. It's the same in life. It's the same in business. It's the same in football. It's a game of inches, and everything that you put towards it ends up coming back at the end of it. And I think that's what we're talking about with the analogy is, when you're distracted, it's okay. Sometimes you have to be distracted. You have to have a well-balanced life, but it's about the work you put in and what you're going to get out of it in the back end.
Now, this was the analogy episode, and I'm not an English major, but I think that one was a metaphor. Business is a game of inches. Is that a metaphor?
That is a metaphor.
That is a metaphor,
well, yeah. Business is, yeah.
It's a game of inches. Wow, look at me.
So it's the analogy and metaphor episode by accident.
The analogy and metaphor episode. But you got the metaphor with an analogy. So, I mean, still, rooted in analogy. Nathan, you've been quiet for a little bit. What's your take on the NFL, the football business analogy there?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. So the first one is I finally found something you guys can totally dumpster me for, which is that for all of the time that I've spent paying attention to football, which is not at any time anymore, I was a Bears fan. So which is also why I'm not a fan of football anymore. Gave up after 10 years. But yeah, I was a Bears man. Now to be fair, I lived in
like
Chicago.
That you said I was a Bears fan. As if like, nope, that ship's sailed. Like there's no chance left.
Burn me once, shame on me. Burn me 10 seasons in a row.
Or 30. Yeah.
Well, I'm not that old. Right. I haven't had time for them to make me feel that pain that long. But anyway, so I finally found something. You guys can make fun of me for that till the end of time. But I do think very strongly, and I say this all the time, I'm an operations guy. Like for all my marketing background, it really comes down to like understanding how the systems of business work. Because at my heart, and I don't know how many people will be familiar with this, but like I'm an EOS guy, I'm a traction guy. I use other business function systems, but like I use scaling up, and I have from Mike McCallowic's some of his models I think are awesome. But like I'm an integrator, I'm a second in command guy. I'm that ops minded person. And so I'm always thinking about how the business works as an entire system. So marketing is one piece of that. It's a critical piece, right? But it is not only in the off season, it is like something I see people all the time during the season, right? During the NFL season is like, why are they playing this way? Why are they running these plays? They need to make these changes. They need to whatever. And I'm like, no, they made the plan in the off season. They have to stick with the plan. You can't, right? There's only so much deviation. Like you can deviate when you're on the field. You can call the audibles, but even those had to basically get set up during the quiet time, not in the game, before the game. And so there's so much that goes into, you have to do that time during the off season because you won't even have an audible to call. during the game if you didn't do
Right.
that planning in the first place. And so I just am really bought into this analogy. I think it's awesome. But to even take it that step further and be like, you don't have the ability to pivot unless you did the planning. It feels counterintuitive, but your flexibility actually comes from your willingness to sit down in those other times, make a plan, and then stick to that plan. And so it feels weird, but yeah, I'm all bought in on this analogy. Yeah.
So that just made me reflect on something that happened, like 2 springs ago when COVID broke loose. Everybody tried to pivot into like disinfecting. Anybody that had a cleaning company was trying to pivot into disinfecting. We didn't, in our downtime, in our slow season, we talked zero about disinfecting. And we like kept like false starting, like we're going to do disinfection. Everybody's going to need disinfection. And eventually I was like, no, we're not going to do disinfection. We're not effing disinfection companies. We're like residential cleaning companies. We clean the outside of houses. We clean the inside of houses. We're not disinfection specialists. Like, why are we going to call an audible that we've never practiced before and act like we're something that we're not? Let's just like, people need what we got. Let's go give the people what we got and run the play that is actually going to like move the ball forward instead of try to like do the annexation of Puerto Rico right now. Cause we saw Little Giants 20 years ago.
Oh man, thank you, Dan, for throwing that in there.
I just made an annexation of Puerto Rico reference last week. That's so magical.
No way.
Yeah, I seriously did.
You guys are both of my heroes. But it's funny, Dan, when you think about it, because I wouldn't have thought of that, right? In fact, if you would have called me when this all started and said we should do disinfection, I would have been like, that's actually a pretty good idea because people need disinfection. But the way you explained it, it's like, well, that makes sense. And not to mention, did people's inside of their houses get dirtier or cleaner when the pandemic hit?
Naturally, quite a bit dirtier.
Okay. And then did they notice that the outside were dirtier or cleaner more often because they were home all the time? Probably. I mean, it's just funny when you think about it, because the reality is your services and your expertise was needed more than ever. Yet in our brains, we go, oh, we got to change with what everybody else says we should be doing. When the way you explained it, it clearly was not the right path. And it took you 45 seconds to articulate that. And I have 100% buy-in. But first thought, I admit, I would have been like, well, yeah, that's a great business opportunity.
We chewed on it for like a month. We tried to, I went to Fleet Farm and bought a mosquito fogger to see if we could to use that to spray the disinfection, because you couldn't get your hands on the equipment. So we spent time dicking around with what's a more cost-effective, consistent way we can do this. Mm-hmm. And after we did that a little bit, I was like, I think I saw myself in the reflection of my sliding glass door in my backyard as I'm trying to spray different things out of a mosquito fogger. And I'm like, what in the hell am I doing back here?
Right.
Like, let me just go make a radio show. What am I actually doing back?
Right.
I saw a thing online and was like, let's try this. Somebody sold me the stick and the string.
Try this one weird trick.
Yeah. Like this trick, a lot of work. But yeah, we spent way too much time exploring alternatives to a thing that we had that worked. And when we just got back to doing the thing that we do and not chasing the shiny object, we had a hell of a year. So
not that you shouldn't pivot. I mean, we've definitely seen it, having been a Bears fan. Sometimes you need to look at a formula and be like, yo, this is not working. Like, we should probably spend some time in the off season coming up with how we're going to make something actually work. I'm not going to have opinions, especially live, where someone might be listening, about what that might have been.
Fields look good. That's a good pivot.
So, but yeah, sometimes you do need to make a change, but definitely that, it really needs to be during the off season, not during the on season, right? Like, if you're going to make that change, don't do it in the middle of the game. Guys, I just decided in the middle of on second down that we should probably play tennis instead.
Hey, no. Mitch Hedberg joke. Pringles started as a tennis ball company, but the truck full of potatoes showed up and he said, F it, cut them up.
Yep, that's right. Because Pringles is a laid back company.
That's right.